Today's video is all about the history of the pompadour haircut. Hi guys and welcome to the video today. My name is Elliot Forbes, a male groomer based in London. This channel is dedicated to hair, beard and grooming tips for the modern man. So if that's something you're interested in, you might want to consider subscribing. So I've been cutting hair for a few years now. I feel very confident in the type of haircuts to do, the way that I cut hair, the way that I approach hair. I feel like I really know what I'm doing. But one thing that I'm not massively clued up on is the history of hair, references, why that haircut is like that, where it came from, who influenced it. And that's something I really want to delve deeper into and try and find out a little bit about, because actually, as much as I love cutting hair and know how to do that haircut, I don't know where it came from. So that's something we're going to delve into a bit deeper. Today's episode is all about the pompadour. Now the pompadour, when I think about it, that's a very classic haircut, sort of like Elvis would be the person that springs to mind with that. So now I'm going to do a little research on the computer. I'm just going to sort of talk through what I find and see if there's anything interesting that comes up. So the first thing that's come up is just the Wikipedia page, which I've now gone onto. The pompadour hairstyle. The pompadour is a hairstyle which was erroneously named in the 1990s by American hairstylists after Madame de Pompadour. Okay, a woman with the surname Pompadour, which I had no idea about. 1721 to 1764. Right, okay. A mistress of King Louis of France. Despite the name, this hairstyle has nothing in common with Madame de Pompadour's hairstyle. Okay, makes sense. Who wore her hair back rather than up, with no extra volume on the top. Although there are numerous variations of the style for men, women and children, the basic concept is having a large volume of hair swept upwards from the face and wore high over the forehead, and sometimes upswept around the sides and the back as well. Yeah, and I guess that's my vision of what a pompadour is. So very high at the front, then sloping backwards to shortening through the crown. Adding vertical volume on top of the head by combining the hair back and up above the forehead is a trend that originated in women's hairstyles of the royal court in France, first in the 1680s and again in the second half of the XV111 century, long before and after Madame Pompadour. Interesting, okay, so in my head, naively, I'd always presumed that this was a men's haircut, just because I guess that's where it's come to prominence in the time that I've been cutting hair, and also what I would picture the pompadour to be. I'd never crossed my mind that actually this was originally a trend that was in women's haircuts. Okay, I like that, that's cool. The style was revived again in the 1890s as part of the Gibson girl look and continued to be in vogue until World War I. The style was in vogue for women once again in the 1940s. The men's version appeared in the 1950s and early 1960s, worn by early country, rock and roll and movie stars such as Elvis Presley, Johnny Cash, James Dean and Tony Curtis, and has enjoyed a renaissance in the mid-2000s. The style is worn by men and women in the 21st century under the modern name, the pompadour. And yeah, there's a picture here of Bette Davis in the film Now, Voyager, from 1942. And yeah, she's wearing like a pompadour right there, and it looks exactly how you would picture a pompadour to be right now, and how I would picture it. Yeah, but not. Yeah, I don't know why I'd never thought of it as a woman's haircut. I've always just gone straight to sort of like the rockers sort of style with it. So men's styles. In the 1950s, the hairstyle was not yet called the pompadour and was donned by James Dean and Elvis Presley. It was then called by other names: the Quiff, the ducktail, the jelly roll, the rocker, the greaser, or simply the Elvis cut. Yeah, and I think if you went into anywhere and asked for the Elvis cut, I think even if you went into any barbershop now and asked for that Elvis cut, I'm pretty sure you'd come out with a pretty slick pompadour. During the 1980s, the hairstyle was associated with rockabilly culture and adopted by those enamoured with vintage culture of the late 1950s and early 60s. which included antique cars, hot rods, muscle cars, American folk music, greasers, teddy boys, rockabilly bands, and even Elvis Presley impersonators. Celebrities known for wearing pompadours during the 1950s and 60s include Little Richard and Afghanistan's Ahmad Zahir, as well as actors such as James Dean, Marlon Brando, and Desi Arnaz. There are Latin variants of the hairstyle more associated with European and Argentine tango fashion trends, and occasionally with the late 20th century musical genres such as rockabilly and country. Yeah, and I think when you sort of think about tango and sort of like the gentleman there, I can really picture them with like a comb, the greaser, the really greased hair, really having a nice sort of move with the hips. That's also then a different type of it. That's somewhere, yeah, I would definitely associate it. The style has become popular among cholos, Italian Americans, and the Gumba or Guido subculture. What is the Guido subculture? Guido is a North American slang term, often derogatory, for a working class urban Italian American. The Guido stereotype is multifaceted. Originally it was used as a demeaning term for Italian Americans in general. Okay, interesting. In modern Japanese popular culture, the pompadour is a stereotypical hairstyle often worn by gang members, thugs, members of the Yakuza, and his junior counterpart, Bossozuku, and other similar groups such as the Yankee, which is a high school hoodlum, apparently. In Japan, the style is known as the Regent hairstyle and is often caricatured in various forms of entertainment media such as anime, manga, television, and music videos, often into improbable levels of length and volume. Yeah, and I think when it goes then to the Japanese culture with a pompadour, I very much think of it as something that is incredibly long in through the back, actually really slicked back and then down. So like what it says here in terms of improbable levels of length and volume. And yeah, like I can really, there's a couple of pictures which I'll try and put up on the screen now of what I really picture, sort of that really incredible height there at the front, very quickly sloping back, and then some mad lengthening through the back. And yeah, I guess I really would associate that more as the modern generation, which, yeah, like they're saying here. Yeah, and then it goes on to talk about the psychobilly subculture as well. Yeah, so the pompadour is slightly modified to form the quiff. The quiff is a hairstyle worn by psychobilly fans and musicians. A psychobilly wedge is a sort of mix between a mohawk hairstyle and the pompadour, where the hair along the sides of the head is shaved and the middle is not spiked but slicked back and stood up like a pompadour. Yeah, and the psychobilly, I look in what I picture of a psychobilly as well, is how it goes super short in through this crown area, and it then goes from obviously like from nothing all the way then to extreme length in through that front. And yeah, the psychobilly, like that's such a cool. Like you've got to be in that subculture and you've got to sort of be confident wearing that and knowing what it is, because yeah, like that's, yeah, it's a very out there cut, but it's cool. Interesting. Now, so it looks like it was in the 40s. So when the war started, that was then where it started changing from more of a woman's cut to a men's cut. So saying during the late 1940s, a more masculine and military look took over women's fashions and the glamorous hairstyles were abandoned. The pompadour would return in a surprising way on the heads of rebellious young men of the 50s and early 60s. One of the most famous male pompadours was worn by Presley. Okay, interesting. So that was sort of when the transition came about. So actually that'd be really interesting to find out then what in the 40s influenced then the women to become more masculine and have a military look. Okay, so now it looks like this is digging into why Elvis picked it up potentially a little bit more then. So it's then saying, in fact, it could be argued that it was precisely because the pompadour was such a popular hairstyle for women that Elvis was drawn to it. Popular belief would have it that Presley's penchant for the pompadour was rooted in the style's larger-than-life exaggerated shape. But considering it was fashionable for women as recently as the 1940s, the king's co-option could be seen as a deliberate two-fingered salute to the conservative social norms. Interesting, yeah, and that sort of makes sense as well, having that you want to go out and do some things differently. So actually, yeah, well, it's a woman's cut, fuck it, well, I'm going to go and do it as a man's cut now then. Okay, I like that. By the 1970s, the pompadour's strict form had lost favour amongst a generation of men eager to do little with their hair other than let it grow and maybe wash it every now and again. And yeah, I guess more in then the hippie era, when you sort of everything was a little more chilled out, yeah, and hair was a lot longer. Yeah, you're not going to be sort of slicking it all back with product, really going to be blow drying it up and then down and combing it all the time. It's very much the case that you're going to be, yeah, just letting it do what it wants, isn't it? So that, yeah, I can imagine that definitely then where it started to wane some. I guess if you were to ask me what a pompadour is, really, I think the thing I would really look for is the silhouette and the shape that's being created. Now there's this one here by Joe Cartmell, and that's like, in my mind, I could just picture that with like crisp shirt, tie, suit on, very 50s, very 60s, arm braces on there, the actual braces on the shirt. I can really picture that just fitting with it perfectly, the way that it's combed back, that shape where it then just sits slightly longer at the front, shape where it then flows back and then almost drops down a cliff and sits very flat at the back there. I picture that very much as like of that era, and very much sort of defined by that. It looks, it's got a nice shine to it, but not crazy amount of shine. And yeah, I feel like that works really quite nicely. And I think I picture that very much as a sort of like a real classic shape with it. You look at that picture then of Elvis as well, and the way that his sort of, it sits really nice, stretched out at the front, drops down then into the crown, and then almost falls off a cliff through there and just tapered out at the very nape. And yeah, like that, for me, that just sort of, that's really signifies what the pompadour is. I love the way that sits on him there. What's also interesting looking at a lot of these other photos now, I hadn't really quite realised just how wavy Elvis's hair was, so it must have actually been quite an effort for him to really sort of, like, I guess he would have really had to comb it an awful lot actually. This one here with like more of the orangey photo, that looks obviously with a bit more length in through the sideburn area. It'd be interesting to know actually if he'd had that cut with a bit longer in through the sides, or whether that's grown out into that sort of shape in through there. Either way, I mean, it looks great on him still there, doesn't it? So it'd be interesting to know whether, actually the top doesn't look crazy long in through there. So I guess if it had grown out to that point, it would have had to have been really quite short on top of there. It's like in a photo like this of Travolta. Be really interesting to know. I'm trying to find out why some of it would be combed up. Obviously at the side there, that's really combed and brushed up. Obviously it's a little bit different shape that he's got in through there because it's, the front is coming forward and it's a slightly different area. But I'm really intrigued as to why some of it was combed up, why then some of it was combed down. Obviously you've got the different variation with having it shorter in through the sides as well. I'm trying to find that. So as with a lot of popular things or subcultures, it tends to really be about rebellion and doing something different, and it's, I guess that's why it was adopted by the rock and roll, by then like the greasers, the completely different subcultures with like the jelly roll, with then all the hair, lots of different subcultures like that. It's all tends to be about rebellion and doing something different than the social norms, and it really looks like the pompadour obviously has done that. Obviously now it looks a little bit more mainstream. You've got the masses. Not so much in 2019 now, but I guess in the last 5 years up to now, really, it had a real resurgence. So a little bit more mainstream. I guess it went through that period where it was for the subcultures, for sort of all against the rebellion, and then it's now come into the mainstream. I guess like if you think about it with, say, Doc Martens. Obviously, like Doc Martens originally, that was for workers. They were workers' boots, and then it turned into rock and roll and the subcultures, and they really adopted it. And now you look on the streets, look on the streets of London and every man and his dog's wearing a pair of Doc Martens. They're obviously still the really cool people that wear them, but it's, even I own pairs of Doc Martens and I wouldn't necessarily be rebellious or one of those sort of people. So it's, yeah, like with everything, I guess it comes into the mainstream eventually. So it's really, yeah, I would like to find out a little bit more about that actually. If you enjoyed that video, there's going to be lots more videos like this coming, trying to find out more about the history of hair, other things, how they all came about and where they sort of originated from. If you got any value from this video today, smash that like button and press subscribe down below. Thank you for watching. Much love, Elliot.